Now, today we are going to discuss a catastrophic situation which has been witnessed in Kerala, the Wayanad tragedy, landslide management and the Wayanad tragedy. Remember that landslide management can be a probable question in your means examination also this year. Earlier, they have asked you questions on landslide management. They have asked you about the vulnerability of Himalayas for landslide. They have even asked you to compare the vulnerability of Himalayas with that of the Western Ghats. But when we talk about the Wayanad tragedy, which occurred on the July 30th this year, we can see that this is nothing but a catastrophic situation which was witnessed by the people of Wayanad. And the normal pattern of life was completely disrupted. More than 350 deaths have been reported, with a number of persons also missing. The Kerala government asking the center that be declared as a national disaster so that more and more of resources can be pumped for relief operation. Even the Kerala government has said that they would be establishing a separate township for those affected by this landslide. And let's see what are the reasons behind the Wayanad tragedy. What are the reasons behind the landslides which took place in Wayanad? Although when it took place, the rescue operation were pressed into service, the army, the NDRF, the Forest and Fire Rescue Service. But due to the sluggish, slippery terrain, the rescue operation was also, the relief operation was also delayed. When you talk about landslides in India, remember that there are three main areas in India which are prone to landslides. Three main areas. Broadly, you can say two areas are prone to landslides. Three main areas. If we talk about the national landslide susceptibility mapping, we can see 1.4 lakh square kilometer in Uttarakhand, Himachal Pradesh is prone to landslide in Jammu and Kashmir. 1.8 lakh square kilometer of the northeast is prone to landslide, and 1 lakh square kilometer of western Ghat is prone to landslide. You can look at the national landslide susceptibility mapping, and the entire landslide prone area, if you sum that up, stands at 4.2 lakh square kilometer. But broadly, we say that there are two areas in India which are mainly prone to landslides. One is the Himalayan region, and second is the Western Ghats. The vulnerability of Himalaya is on account of many considerations. One is, remember that more than 30% of global landslides which takes place in the Himalayan region alone. And why? Because Himalayas, they have a number of parallel folds. They have a number of parallel folds. So number of parallel folds means that the number of steep slopes are there. Number of parallel folds means that a number of steep slopes are there. And this makes Himalaya vulnerable for landslide. Now, second reason is that Himalayas are also prone to cloud busting. And cloud busting is followed by heavy rainfall and landslides. Third reason is Himalayas are also prone to earthquakes. Earthquake would be followed by landslides. So these are the natural factors which makes Himalayas vulnerable for landslides. But there are many other factors also. For example, sheared and shattered rocks make it vulnerable for landslides. And the anthropogenic contribution in enhancing the vulnerability for landslide includes many. We have constructed a number of dams and reservoirs in Himalayas, which enhances the vulnerability for landslides. And not only this, a number of tourist centers have been established in Himalayas. Global warming and climate change is responsible for landslides. When the glacial melts, this would be responsible for landslides also. So there are a number of reasons. So if we talk about the vulnerability of Himalayas can be divided into some natural considerations and also some anthropogenic consideration. But if we talk about Western Ghats, remember that the main reason behind landslides in Western Ghat is heavy rainfall. And not only heavy rainfall and steep slopes are they responsible for landslides in Western Ghat. Heavy rainfall, one can say. Steep slopes also responsible for landslide in Western Ghat. But the vulnerability of Western Ghat has enhanced due to industrialization on a large scale, due to urbanization on a large scale, due to extension of agriculture also. A number of power lines have been established in Western Ghats. So enhancing the susceptibility of Western Ghat for landslides, because whenever these kind of development activities takes place, development activity would be responsible for enhancing soil erosion. And whenever soil erosion is enhanced, whenever soil erosion is enhanced, then definitely landslides would occur. So all these other factors, the entire area of Western Ghat, the total area of Western Ghat is roughly about 1,64,000 square kilometers. So in 2011, committee was submitted its report, which was called as the Madhav Gardil Committee. Madhav Gardil Committee. And this committee recommended that out of 1,64,000 square kilometer, 1,29,000 square kilometer of area should be declared as eco-sensitive zone. But this committee's recommendation was rejected by the government. Another committee was established, and that committee was called as Kasturi Rangam Committee. And Kasturi Rangam committee in the year 2013 said that 59,940 square kilometer of Western Ghat, 59,940 square kilometer of Western Ghat should be declared as eco-sensitive zone, ESZ. And this was roughly acceptable to the government, its draft recommendation as such. And if we talk about the recent times, the government has notified eco-sensitive zones in Western Ghats, and that roughly is 58,825 square kilometer. It stretches out in Gujarat, Maharashtra, Goa, Karnataka, Kerala, and Tamil Nadu. And out of this, we can see more than 9,000 square kilometer is in Kerala itself. When Madhav Gadgil committee submitted its recommendation, we can see bulk of the territory which was recommended by Madhav Gadgil lied in Kerala only. So that's one perspective that we have to see. And sometimes when we talk about landslides in Himalayas, remember that the severity of landslide enhances if the cause of landslides happen to be avalanche, which was seen in the Chamoli disaster of 2021. So the severity enhances. But talking about Wayanad, coming to the Wayanad tragedy, we can see that when you talk about the Wayanad district of Kerala, the Wayanad district of Kerala, according to the landslide vulnerability mapping, and this was done by the IIT Delhi, stands 13th among the 146 districts considered for this purpose. And this ranks fifth in Kerala. So vulnerability for landslides in Wayanad is very high. That's one perspective that you have to see. So all these figures suggested that Wayanad, when you talk about the Wayanad tragedy of July 30th, you can see heavy rainfall took place in Wayanad, and this was more than 500 mm. 500 mm. Generally, if suppose the rainfall is between 115 to 204 mm, then a yellow alert is issued. If it is more than 204 mm, then red alert is issued. So you can see what kind of alert should be issued for this kind of rainfall. This created havoc. This created havoc. And how the landslide occurred? Because in Venath, there is a place which is called as Mepadi, where it started. From Mepadi, 4 kilometers from Mepadi, is a place which is called as Mundakai. The debris were carried from Mepadi to Mundakai, and from Mundakai, 2.5 kilometer from Mundakai, is a place which is called as Churamala, which is densely populated. So the debris were carried to Churamala, and from Churamala, we can see the debris were carried to the Sochipura waterfall. From where the Chalya river originates. From where the Chalya river originates. So it started from Mepadi, it reached Mundakai, then to Churamala, and then to Suchipura waterfall, from where the Mepadi, from where the Chalya river originates. So in this way, the landslide occurred. Now there were three villages in the Vaithiri region, Vaithiri Taluk, which were completely leveled. This also was, but the thing is, the question is, why Wayanad? What happened in Wayanad? What were the factors which were responsible for the Wayanad tragedy? Now, the first factor which is responsible for the Wayanad tragedy is the heavy rainfall. You can see, first factor is the heavy rainfall. That's the first factor. And I told you that the rainfall was more than 500 mm within 24 hours. The second factor is the sheared and shattered rocks. When you talk about the sheared and shattered rocks, water accumulate there. And due to it, what happens? The sheared stress enhances. And if the sheared stress enhances, it makes that area vulnerable for landslide. Not only the slopes were responsible, but also we can say soil erosion on a large scale took place. And soil erosion on a large scale took place due to development activities. Remember that this in this area during the British rule, the hills were dug in search of gold. There was a rumor that area consisted of tons and tons of gold. So the entire area was hills were dug, and this loosened the rocks also. Then also we can see one another reason is the loss of forest cover. Loss of forest cover. Because if you look at the statics, it says that 18% loss of forest cover took place between 1950 to 2018. And when loss of forest cover takes place, it's responsible for enhancing erosion. Then also another factor which is responsible for the Wayanad tragedy is mining and coring. This is also responsible for loosening up the rocks. And when we talk about Western Ghat as a whole, we can see climate change is also responsible. Climate change is also responsible. Now, how climate change is responsible for enhancing the susceptibility for landslides? Because what happens due to climate change, the surface temperature of the coastal areas have enhanced. So you can see more and more low pressure area in the Arabian Sea, which leads to formation of deep cloud patterns and more of intensive convective rainfall taking place. So it means heavy rainfall within a shorter period of time. And that is the result of climate change. That is the result of climate change. So all these factors, tourism is another factor also. Because when you talk about tourism in this area, we can see 17 lakh footfall of tourist, where in the year 2023 a number of resorts have been established. So all these factors are there for the vulnerability of Wayanad district. All these factors contributed to the vulnerability of Wayanad district. Now, when you talk about landslide management, that what needs to be done for this purpose, you know that in this area there is only and only one Doppler radar. So a second Doppler radar needs to be established in that area. The vulnerability mapping, the carrying capacity assessment of this area should be conducted. That is for the sustainability of the area. So that should also be conducted. But in general, when we talk about landslide management, we can say that landslide management includes a number of steps. One step which can be recommended for landslide management is the zonation of the area. Zonation of the area means that with the help of BSF, with the help of state government, with the help of the local inhabitants, we have to look into the zonation of the area. That this is the area which is prone to landslides. Clear? So that can be said. Second thing is what? That we should also make a study of recent landslides to know about the causes. So that's another thing which can be done. A concrete step would be, why not establish parallel concrete walls in these areas. Now, parallel concrete walls would be responsible for checking soil erosion. And if the soil erosion is checked, certainly the vulnerability for landslide would be reduced. Reforestation on a large scale, because the roots of the plants are responsible for firmly fixing the soil. Reforestation should be done on a large scale. That's another thing. And for as far as relief measure is concerned, because whenever disaster happens, relief and rehabilitation would be a big concern. So for relief measures, for a device is used, and that device is called as what's called as ground penetrating radars. Penetrating radars. Now, ground penetrating radars means that this would be responsible for checking that if people are trapped inside the debris or not. So that can be used. Doppler radar can be used for this purpose. We have discussed Doppler radar can be used for forecasting heavy rainfall. It can be used. So, second Doppler radar in this region should be established to check the vulnerability for landslides. And also, uh, the houses in these areas should have minimum load. They should be established on most modern technique. The settlements in these areas, the houses in these areas should be established on most modern technique. And these modern techniques should be based on minimum load and waste disposal. Because if waste disposal is high, this would be responsible for clogging the drains. So drainage system should be proper in this area. Drainage system should be properly maintained. And if clogging of drains takes place, then due to heavy rainfall, sudden accumulation of water would take place. And this would be responsible for enhancing the susceptibility for landslides. So all these are the way out for not only Wayanad tragedy, but for other landslides which takes place in different parts of India. So, a brief discussion on the Wayanad tragedy and landslide management. I think that these points can be used by you for writing the questions in examination. And let's try to frame a question also here. Discuss one subjective type question. See, one question which can be used for practicing. Due to lack of carrying capacity assessment and unplanned development. The paradise of biodiversity on earth. Paradise of biodiversity on earth. Himalayas and Western Ghat. Good question. Himalayas and Western Ghats are becoming more vulnerable for disasters. More vulnerable for disasters. Discuss this in the limelight of Wayanad tragedy. Discuss this in limelight of Wayanad tragedy. See, M.S. Swaminathan has said that Himalayas and Western Ghats are the two paradise on earth, but due to anthropogenic activities, they happen to be paradise lost. So I'm putting a question to you that due to lack of carrying capacity assessment and unplanned development, the paradise of biodiversity on earth, Himalayas and Western Ghats, are becoming more vulnerable for disasters. Discuss this in limelight of Wayanad tragedy. So this you can answer in practice. Thanks so much.